example, small island development states. Most of the countries basically are very small, isolated, as well as dispersed. Pacific countries facing actually also very unique challenges, highly vulnerable to shocks, for example, to the impacts of climate change, as well as health shocks, as we have seen during the pandemic. The service delivery capacity is weak, and also the governance constraints is also a challenge as well. In the meantime, the economy is narrow and also vulnerable, and also the countries are quite far away from the major markets, regional market, as well as international market. The cost, for example, construction, transportation are quite high. This all also give us quite high very challenges in terms of agriculture, rural development, as well as food security and nutrition as well. So in today's session, we will be here to hear from the country as well as from different partners what are the key issues that you see, as well as solutions you will propose, which ADB and also different partners and the countries can work together to address. To start with, let me invite Minister Stephen Victor from the Agriculture, Fisheries and the Environment Ministry of Palau to give the keynote speech. Minister, please.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you're not tired of listening to me. I've been speaking for the last 3 days, so I hope you're not tired of... But someone asked me this morning if I have a PowerPoint presentation. And I mentioned that many years ago at a PIF meeting that Palau hosted, we had a session of about oceans. And we all had a PowerPoint presentation. And here comes the president of the University of Guam, and he didn't have a presentation. And so he said, I don't have a presentation, but I hope I will make some powerful points. So oceans represent over 70% of the planet. But only about 15% of the global protein intake come from the ocean. But when it comes to the Pacific, we have some of the highest per capita fish consumption, which means we are very reliant on the ocean. Not only our source of protein, but also our economies. Most of Pacific economies relies on ocean-based tourism and fisheries. So ocean, as part of our food systems, as part of the climate, food, nature nexus is very important. We know that the ocean is a very important regulator of climate. But we also know that biodiversity loss in the ocean continues to be exacerbated by pollution, by fishing activities, and it is being also threatened by potential for deep sea mining that is being seen as a solution for our transition to renewable energy. So ocean, for us in the Pacific, represent an immense potential for our economic growth, but also represent a huge threat to the Pacific people because of the impact of sea level rise on low-lying islands in the Pacific. As specific countries, we have come together under the Pacific Island Forum umbrella and developed an initiative called Unlocking Blue Pacific Prosperity. And this is an initiative that aims to manage 100% of the ocean, including protecting 30%. The second goal is really about Pacific food systems, ensuring a healthy Pacific people through ensuring a healthy coastal ecosystems. Most Pacific communities rely on the coastal systems as a source of protein. But we see that our coastal fisheries have declined tremendously. So there is this need to transition from focusing on eating coastal fisheries to eating pelagic fisheries. In the Pacific, in the Western and Central Pacific region, it supplies 60% of the global tuna supply. Yet, when you go to many of these Pacific countries, we import the same tuna that is caught in our waters at a much higher price from USA, Japan, Thailand, and elsewhere. So, part of our food system is how do we keep that, not just the value, but keep some of the fish within the Pacific to help support our food security. So that's the second part of the Unlocking Blue Pacific Prosperity. And the third part is establishing a fit for financing financial mechanism. We have a $500 million goal, and to date, at the last COP, the Bezos Earth Fund pledged $100 million to this initiative. So this is an initiative that we hope that ADB can also explore opportunity to be a co-investor. We've set a ceiling of a minimum of $10 million to be a co-investor in this initiative. The ceiling was set because there are many people who want to help, but considering the challenge of managing everybody who wants a piece of the cake, we said $10 million, so it's easier to manage. So this initiative has been championed by Palau and Tonga with the support from the Secretariat of the Pacific Community. It has taken us 2 years to get to $100 million, but I hope AVB can propel us a little bit further. And also Australia, New Zealand, and all our other bilateral partners. I know there are organizations within Australia that have already shown interest in providing support, and we greatly appreciate that support. So it is a model by which we can address the difficult challenges that we face today as individual countries. I think in the past we have tried to address them on our own, but we're recognizing that because of our smallness, our remoteness, and our lack of capital, that we need to work together to achieve the solutions that has proven to work, but might have been a failure when we implement individually. We take tuna fisheries, for example. There are a lot of failures of private sector development within the Pacific because we had tried to go at it alone. What has changed that view is when some of the Pacific islands came together and formed the Paris to the Nauru Agreement. It has increased our revenue capture from the tuna fisheries quite a lot. I wouldn't want to say 10 times, but it's a lot. I recall around 2014, the value of a per cent vessel day was only at about 4,000. But today, a value of a single per cent day can be sold up to $12,000 or $13,000 per day. So that has tremendously increased the revenue capture from the fishery. But we're still only participating in the access. The fish it coated our waters, processed elsewhere, and then shipped back to us. Why can't we do it in the Pacific? So I know in the Forum Fisheries Agency Council, Papua New Guinea put forward an initiative called the East New Britain Initiative. And this initiative is meant to bring together the Pacific Island countries in terms of thinking about how we address processing within the Pacific. Because PNG alone will not have enough fish to process on its own. We have Philippine-based companies that are fishing in the Pacific and processing tuna in Papua New Guinea. Why can't Papua New Guinea be, and why can't the Pacific Islanders be owning a company that processes this tuna? So it is a concept of hub and spoke. So Papua New Guinea being the hub, and then the Pacific Island countries who has tuna resources be the spoke. And so we would each potentially own a share within this company, and we would commit to providing X volume of tuna to the processing centers in Papua New Guinea so that we can process, leave some of that tuna at an affordable price to feed our citizens, and then export the tuna into the EU markets. Because the same tuna that's being processed in Papua New Guinea at the moment are being sent to Europe. So why can't we develop a Pacific-led company that participate in this supply chain? So there are opportunities that we can look at a region, and there are opportunities that are fit for individual country. For example, in Palau, we're looking at developing our tuna industry, long line, coupled with aquaculture, because bait is an important component within the long line industry. We're importing bait from elsewhere, which makes the cost of fishing high, which makes the price of tuna higher within Palau. So if we're able to address parts of the operational cost, we're able to lower the price of tuna in Palau and make it more affordable. We need investment in fishing port, in aquaculture facility, in processing facility and land. It's a total investment of about up to $50 million that will help realize development of a blue economy that's not solely reliant on tourism. It's an integrated concept of fisheries, aquaculture, and tourism. For those who have been to Palau, you would have seen that tourism is concentrated in the Rock Islands of Palau. It's putting a lot of pressure on our reef within the southern lagoon of Palau. So the long-term impact of that tourism would be a reef that will decline in health, and declining the health of the fish of the reef will impact the tourism, because unfortunately the tourist who comes to Palau, they don't want to come to see me, they want to come to see the reef and the fish. So we need to keep the reef healthy, and by keeping the reef healthy means that we need to spread the risk to other diversify tourist activity. So this approach of building a fishing port will also create an enabling environment for some of the tourist activities to move to the main island of Palau, because now they have a port by which they can depart from. To get to Koror from, to get to Babelda from Koror on a boat costs a lot, because it requires a lot of fuel. And so, but if you drive a bus and bring the tourist to the area, it's cheaper, which makes it affordable for visitors to participate in additional activities in Palau. So when we look at investing in climate, food, and nature, I think what we've been able to sort of think about addresses investing in natural assets, developing food systems that are being led by indigenous local people, protecting the environment that has climate contribution, thereby building resilient ecosystem, resilient communities, and resilient economies within Palau, and we hope that across the Pacific. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Minister. Your points are powerful, but I think more importantly for us, it's highly inspiring and very insightful. You have speak on basically very rightly the importance of the climate, food, and natural nexus. And you point out those challenges not only for Palau, but also for the overall Pacific countries. The suggestion you made actually also apply to overall Pacific countries as well. And great appreciate and also your advice on those suggestions. For example, you highlighting working together with the private sector, as well as to make sure the community ecosystem is sustained, is kept healthy, and to keep the overall objective to have resilient ecosystem, resilient community, as well as resilient economy. Thank you so much. Let me invite the panel members to come on board. And may I just, if okay, Minister, may I just ask you to come also on board as well. Minister, please. Okay. Thank you, Minister. Understand. Thank you so much. It's good that we have your insights here. So now I will invite Ms. Regina Lukanju, Senior Food Security Policy Officer from Department of Agriculture and Livestock, PNG. Ms. Regina, please. And Ms. Adisi Tuka, Food System Program Leader, the Pacific Community. Yes, please. Ms. Fiona Lin, Director, Agricultural Development and the Food Security Section, Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, Australia. Ms. Suzy Newman, Director, International Development, Plant and Food Research, New Zealand. And Mr. Liang Ziyu, Senior Research Fellow, Foresight and Policy Modeling Unit, Department of Transformation Strategies, IPRI. And we have also Mr. Joseph Newman joining us online. Mr. Joseph is a Food and Nutrition Officer from FAO Sub-Regional Office from the Pacific Islands. Mr. Joseph, can you hear us? Just to check you are there.
I do. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, to start with, maybe I will just ask our panel members if you can speak to start with, just in less than 2 minutes. What did you see from your perspective? What is the most pressing issues for food security in your country or in the Pacific region? So if it's okay, I start with Ms. Regina, please.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Again, thank you, Minister, for that very inspiring speech this morning. It sort of lays that foundation for all of us, and it mentions what we do face as the Pacific Island nations. But for Papua New Guinea, one of those maybe critical challenges for us would be in times of climate change and our food systems. And for PNG, it's a very subsistence production-based food system. And so to be able to bring those food from the rural areas into where people are, and many of our people congregate to the towns and cities looking for employment and better lives. And so to be able to bring those food that is produced in the local areas into the cities and maintain that at a quality that is for human consumption. For PNG, we have there are road connections and bulk of the transportation to reach other areas is air transport, and it's very expensive. So to get those food to where people are, it is very expensive too. And I just also would like to just make a statement on a challenge that I see as contributing to the whole of the Pacific would be nutrition. And NCD, non-communicable disease, is a very it's a hidden killer across the Pacific, and PNG is there in that. So to be able to have quality food, to be able to change the diets of the people, to choose quality, and all of that, it is a lifestyle. Diseases are now increasing and killing a lot of people, and that is something that needs to be also a very challenge for us in in Papua New Guinea, but also for the Pacific, to be able to look at how best we can be able to address that silent killer. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Regina. You touch on the climate change and also bring food to where people is while keeping the quality of food as well as the nutrition. Thank you so much. So then I will ask Ms. Adisi for your intervention. Thank you.
Sure, thank you, Honourable Minister, ladies and gentlemen, my fellow panelists. I'm not representing a particular country because I work for SPC. I'll give sort of a regional overview, which is complex given I cover 22 Pacific Island countries and territories in varying sizes, from tens of thousands of people to millions in other economies, atoll countries to more large land-based economies, so diversity in terms of representation. I'd probably reflect on, in terms of the convergence of crisis, if you will. So looking at climate change, obviously the biggest challenge confronting us, throwing in the health crisis, which Regina has elaborated on, the loss of biodiversity, which the Honourable Minister also pointed out, but also just generally economic instability. And if anything, COVID-19 is still very much upon us, at least the recovery process, or we're trying to. So, putting all that together in one basket, and if you were to dissect all of that even further, it almost seems a very mammoth task, and the complexities around that. And so from SPC's standpoint, as a technical and scientific organization, we're mindful that we're an extension to government services and programs, and we cover over 25 sectors. And so for us, the challenge is really around addressing food systems in a systematic way, recognizing that we can't work in isolation, and that food systems isn't just about agriculture and forestry. It's about fisheries resources, coastal and pelagic. It's about infrastructure, soft and hard, and that's another list that goes on. It's about having people-centered approaches. So where women and youth particularly, we're finding that there's a mass exit or low participation in these sectors particularly. Everyone wants jobs in the office nowadays. So a lot of skills and capacities. And yeah, those are just sort of the ones on the top of my head. But if we were to have a deep dive, of course, a lot more of that will come. So whilst these challenges are many and plenty, I also like to think that we want to focus on some of the positives. And there are lots of positives in the region. There's a lot of great projects and initiatives that are being rolled out by countries and territories, as well as the regional organizations, of course, with support of our partners. But I think three that stand out is, for the Pacific, food is part and parcel of our culture and our identity. So traditional knowledge and indigenous food systems, coastal food systems, I think that's something for us to build on. There's lots of learnings, particularly if we want to address food system deficiencies. Secondly is obviously the Blue Pacific continent. Our leaders have endorsed the 2050 strategy, and as Honourable Minister Victor pointed out, the ocean is our biggest resource. So how do we, we have a big stewardship role over that, but there's also lots and lots of opportunities. And I think that's where those of us in the room particularly would like to really explore that further. And then thirdly is really around, collaboration and partnership. SPC is one of several regional organizations. We're part of a regional architecture with lots of amazing other sister organizations. So we're all pulling our resources together to try and support our countries, as well as lots of partners, including Australia, New Zealand, and the ADB. So I think that's an important positive for us to go forward. As my kids like to say, you either go big, mummy, or go home.
Thank you, Adisi. And also, SPC, as you said, actually is playing a very important role in promoting the cooperation and the integration across countries in the Pacific region. And also, actually, I'm also happy to hear you mention about the coastal protection. as well as infrastructure part, in addition to support needed for agriculture, fisheries, and nutrition. So this is also important area, actually, ADB is looking into on enhancing climate and coastal resilience in the face of climate change. Thanks so much. Now let me turn over to Ms. Fiona. Fiona, please.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to be on the panel. So I'm with the Australian government, with the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, and I work in the development area of DFAT. And I have to say at the outset that what we do in the development space is very much driven by Pacific priorities. And it's certainly very clear to us that climate and climate adaptation and resilience is a key part of that story, as we've touched on already. But also a key part of that story is just how sizable still a number of people in the Pacific who are still reliant on agriculture and on fisheries. There are still a sizable proportion of people that live in rural areas who rely solely on agriculture and fisheries for their incomes and livelihoods. And I mean, that's very real. They need those incomes to send their children to school, to access healthcare. So working together to improve those livelihoods is a very important part of what we do. I mean, we do have programs that help to link farmers and fishers to markets, be able to provide inputs, hopefully locally produced inputs, and to sell into domestic and export markets. But I have to say that the markets are very thin in the Pacific. I mean, we work with aggregators and with agribusinesses, but there are not so many of them. There is not a strong level of expertise amongst farmers and fishers in terms of engaging in markets, in terms of understanding what they need to be commercially viable. And the connectivity, the connection to markets is really problematic. So I think when we're thinking about investment in the Pacific, it's really about building the entire ecosystem that helps people engage in those markets. So not just looking for single agribusinesses, of which there are not so many, but trying to build the entire ecosystem. So I think, sort of touching a little on Regina's points, when we think about investment in the space, it is investment in that whole ecosystem. So in the connectivity piece, transport, but not necessarily all the major roads. It's thinking about those smaller connector roads, the smaller wharves. How do we build an ecosystem that can really reach out and be accessible by smallholder farmers and by small-scale fishers? Communications, another important point, but communications into regional and remote areas, because I mean that's the people. That's where the people live whose livelihoods we are trying to improve. I think also when we think about income streams for smallholder farmers and fishers, they're trying to reward or finding ways to reward them for their natural capital, and the natural capital they build is a real challenge, but an important one that again we need to work collaboratively to try and address, because farmers and fishers are not only farmers and fishers, they are also land and water managers. They are natural capital managers, and we do need to find systems that can help them be rewarded for that important work as natural capital managers. And I think finally, again, about trying to build that ecosystem, so investing in markets, I mean actual physical markets, and hubs in regional areas, so trying to bring those services to the rural people rather than expecting that rural people are going to find their way to the services. So services, knowledge, inputs to help them improve their livelihoods. I'll leave it at that, thanks.
Thank you very much, Ms. Fiona. among all the things you talked, let me just echo what you mentioned about building the entire ecosystem, and also you mentioned about investing in physical market. Actually, this is also the initiative. For example, we received the proposal from P&G, and also importance is that basically need to link to smallholders in the remote areas, so the logistics. And also you highlight actually importance of understanding the market. Actually, is also to promote the private sector in the Pacific countries. Also a point the minister has also mentioned earlier. So this is also one key area ADB would like to do in Pacific, is to promote the private sector investment, not only from ADB's private sector investment itself, but also we would like to see more private sector coming up in the region, in the country by itself. Thank you. Now let me go to Mrs. Suzy, please.
Kia ora, and thank you for the opportunity to share at this panel. I think this morning we've already heard a lot about the challenges that the Pacific is facing from Minister Victor and also our co-panelists from PNG and SPC. So I don't propose to go through those challenges, but merely to agree with what they have presented. We hear about climate change, we hear about food insecurity, we hear about the problems of nutrition, but also about access to fisheries and then the ability to be able to value add and process those fisheries within the countries. So together with our Pacific partners, Plant and Food Research has been co-designing a new climate-smart food systems project that's in PNG, Solomon Islands, Fiji, Tonga and Samoa. And so this has really enabled us to see firsthand that whilst climate and food security challenges are Pacific-wide, the impacts can be very acute and different at local levels. And so to enable the design of effective interventions that are scalable, they really need to be community driven so that real change can take place. Interventions also need to go beyond production and need to address the whole supply chain, and food security can be really acute at a local level. If we think maybe about some of the highlands of PNG, where when there's a long drought, there's no access to foods. And so really there is the opportunity for local value addition and local processing that stays within those communities. We also traversed a number of challenges yesterday. I think Minister Victor put it well when he talked about the challenges of Pacific Island countries being able to articulate their vision and priorities clearly enough to enable them not to be driven by the direction of the donor dollar. And apologies, Minister, if my paraphrasing has lost some of the essence of what you said. But we need to make sure that programs are Pacific-led, they're co-created, and that innovations bring lasting benefit to local communities.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Sui. I can see that the plant and the food research, as well as other partners, for example, from New Zealand, can help substantially on the research and the development in Pacific countries. And as you said, also to go beyond the production. Production itself is very important with the climate-smart agriculture technology or fisheries techniques, for example. But we also need to look into climate-resilient value chain as well. So thank you so much. Now let's come to Mr. Liang Zi. Liang Zi, please.
Okay. I want to be a little bit provocative, so tell you a story first. I think, I'm not sure how many you follow the news, at least the Olympic news. You know, Pacific Island make big news. I think in the Rio in 2016, you know, this is opening ceremony. There's like a shirtless, oily kind of flag barrier, you know, in Rio Olympics. This is from Tango, I think. Even in 2022, when Beijing Olympics, there's also a shirtless oily kind of flag barrier. This make make world news, I think. But that is as a researcher, every story always have a serious purpose. And in fact, this is the Togo. I remember Togo is part of this ADB member. And actually in the Beijing Olympics, it's American Samoa. It's not the Samoa. Samoa is a member of ADB, but American Samoa is not. I think that kind of things illustrated the challenge you are facing in a lot of sense. Of course, you want to do. I don't mean that you try to make shortlists to make a splash, but I think this is what we'll talk about. You have to admit there's a lot of challenges. And then this connective action. This Alisa, maybe your organization play a big role. If you really want your voice heard, that is one way. Of course, your athletes also make good one. Okay, I'll stop here. I don't want to too provocative in that sense. Okay, I'll talk about what IPRI does. Actually, IPRI is not me. Actually, I'm representing Amini. Of course, I'm not Amini. Amini Schmidt is our IPRI guy in the Pacific. I'm quite enjoying. But we have done, actually, with ADB's funding. Oh, I'm old. Almost 15 years ago, I saw yesterday is 2010, 2012, do a climate change impact study for TA for the Pacific Island. We did 3 countries. Actually, my boss, Mark Rosegren, did the keynote speak over there. A lot of things actually, of course, there's a lot of things changes, but that is kind of vision ADB actually think about. I mean, for climate change, 15 years is a long time. That is already visioned that. A lot of things. But I learned a lot of things. Of course, the huge. If you talk Pacific Island, is huge diversity. I know Fiji's agriculture is not that much, but Pacific Island, Solomon, and PNG and Solomon Island agriculture actually very important in that part. And then everybody talk accessibility. And then there's the other things I'm talking about right now. Of course, from that part now, IPRI also have dedicated program in PNG. Thanks for the Australia's Fiona's support about the IPRI support in the PNG. We have done for a long time. We are about set a country program. The key thing about, I think this is another thing in the keynote. During this conference, we are talking about the data, right? Mirror. We start data with basic, I think we all think about the private sector. If your public sector doing what the public sector does, and the private sector will come in, but I think the data. And then talking about data, actually in the first stage, we spend a lot of time trying to take basic, right? Think about it. And the PNG, Regina, you might correct me wrong, the agri census in 1960, 1950, you are talking 50 years ago. I'm talking census, not sampling. How could you plan? How can any investors come in without any data in planning? But that now, I don't know what it is, almost finished. Now to my favorite project, and then technology. I think during the whole forum, technology, innovation is the key. Now there's a new technology. We know all the challenges, but the one technology, satellite. You mean that is satellite technology to leverage satellite technology to estimate a lot of data. I'm talking about data. I'm a researcher. I'm not that broad. Think about the data issue. That would be the key for a lot of things. Even the satellite technology usually in the we called again 15 years ago, Gates Foundation actually did so-called very catchy word, statistical from space. Basically, the satellite, even the US, Europeans, it's very hard, still hard. But that is one technology, I think, for Pacific Island. You are huge, you're so expensive to do any traditional way. If you think about technology, leapfrog, this is one leapfrog. Think about your land phone to mobile phone, right? You don't need to go to land phone. It's the same thing in the traditional way to do statistics. Maybe this is a satellite-based technology. I really think this technology can and should be applied for a lot of technology, at least on data side. Maybe you don't need to go to the traditional way to do it, but that is the future, maybe, how to apply, leverage a satellite. I know there's European space agencies, NASA space agency, but even Japanese, Chinese satellite is very good. We are talking about for agriculture, you don't need the Pentagon's kind of very high precision. 1 meter kind of resolution is good enough for most, even for smallholders, it's good enough. I'll stop here.
Thank you very much, Lianzi. You highlighted the importance of data, and in particular, for example, agricultural consensus in some of the countries may need to be updated. Very nice point. Actually, this would be very, very useful for the countries to put forward the evidence-based policy making, and that's also where EPRI can add value, supporting policies, updating, for example, in the countries. And actually, we have already received requests from some of the Pacific countries to see how ADB can help on updating agriculture and fisheries policies. Thank you, Liang Zi. Now let me turn over to Mr. Joseph from FAO. Mr. Joseph, please.
Thank you very much. And let me begin by thanking the Honorable Minister Victor, who set the scenes, but also to all of the colleagues, the panelists, and the audience as well. FAO is very, very honored to have been invited to join this important forum. And I should convey sincere apologies from Ms. Zhang Jun Yao, the FAO Sub-Regional Coordinator, who this morning got taken away by another event, so she couldn't come. Just like all of the other panelists, I don't want to spend a lot of time trying to lecture the Pacific people about the problems that they confront. They know these better, and they live with them every day. Every day we hear about, agricultural implements being costly because of isolation, land and water are scarce because of climate change, local farming is disincentivized by unfavorable labor, technological, and economic conditions. The population is also conditioned by the forces of economics to eat less of what they produce by eating more of what is imported. Unfortunately, while most of the imported foods are comparatively cheaper, they are often not the healthiest. So Pacific Seas deal with a crisis of non-communicable diseases that my colleagues mentioned. And these are known to be the single largest killer of the population. For example, in Samoa alone, 81% of the total deaths is attributed to NCDs. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is a common story. Let me focus on solutions because I think this is what the discussion is about from the perspective of FAO. Our Director General, Dr. K. Duyon, proposes that FAO should address the food security challenges of the Pacific from 4 interlinked points by working on investing in what he calls the 4 betters. And I will name them: better production, better environment, better nutrition, and better life. So his vision, which is programmatically implementing, is to ensure better production by investing in solutions such as innovation for sustainable agriculture production, blue transformation, One Health, small-scale producers' equitable access to resources, and the digitalization of agriculture. What he proposes in terms of ensuring better environment is by investing in solutions such as climate change mitigation and adapted agri-food systems, bioeconomy for sustainable food and agriculture, biodiversity and ecosystem services for food and agriculture, and achieving sustainable urban food systems. When he talks about better nutrition, he wants us to invest in solutions, and this is what we are doing, such as healthy diets for all, nutrition for the most vulnerable, safe food for everybody, reducing food loss and waste, and transparent market trade. Now, when he talks about better life, he is encouraging us, and this is what we are doing, to invest in solutions such as gender equality, and rural women's empowerment, inclusive rural transformation, agriculture and food emergencies, resilient agri-food systems, scaling up investment, etc. Now, the last point, when he talks about investing in cross-cutting solutions, he's encouraging FAO, and this is what we are doing, to invest in themes and accelerators such as technology, innovation, data, complements, etc., etc. But ladies and gentlemen, the Pacific seas and seas in general require a specific attention. So in 2021, the FAO Director General created the Global Seas Solutions Platform to provide a uniquely innovative intra and inter-country and regional knowledge exchange enabler to incubate, promote, scale up, and replicate locally grown ideas to accelerate the achievements of agriculture, food, nutrition, environment, and health-related SDGs. A key activity on this platform is the Pacific Sea Solutions Forum, which is convened annually by FAO. The objective of the 2024 Pacific Sea Solutions Forum, which will be co-hosted by Fiji in Nadi from 27th to the 30th of August, is to strengthen, promote, and optimize enablers that can catalyze better production, better nutrition, and other the four vectors that I have already named. As it is with this forum that you are in today, the 2024 Pacific Sea Solutions Forum will focus on solutions to the food security challenges of the Pacific Seas. The forum will be headlined by the Prime Minister of Fiji and the FAO Director General, with more than 300 participants from in and outside of the Pacific. Notable among them will be Pacific ministers and senior officials from Australia, from agriculture, fisheries, and all of the sectors, but also including civil society groups, development partners, IFIs, etc. Now, I should conclude by saying the ADB has a critical role to play and has been a major partner in organizing the past forums in the Pacific. FAO looks forward to working with the ADB as we move forward. Ladies and gentlemen, I will stop here. And again, I will say thank you very much for the opportunity to allow FAO to share. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Joseph, for informing us about the FAO's overall vision and the strategy, and also very in particular the works FAO has been doing in Pacific to help, for example, innovation for productive system, for the rural transformation, as well as for digitalization of the agriculture. And also happy to hear from you about this Pacific Food Security Forum that the FAO and the government of Fiji will co-organize in the coming days. Thank you so much. Now, let me turn to the second round of questions. And based on the challenges and the issues you have pointed out, and some of you have also suggested very good solutions or ideas that, for example, from development partner side or from country side, we need to do. I just want to get your guidance, for example, how we can work together. And in particular, actually, for example, Australian government, the New Zealand government, the FAO, and also other partners have substantially worked already in the Pacific countries. How did you see what will be the value addition for ADB to come in supporting agriculture, food security, as well as climate resilience, coastal protection in the region? So what's your suggestion for ADB to focus on? Thank you so much. So may I start with Ms. Regina again? Ms. Regina, please.
Thank you. Okay, yesterday I think we had another session yesterday by country, and I I think I mentioned a couple of challenges also, but some solutions yesterday too. But today, as I mentioned, a few challenges, and I think apart from the what I mentioned, most of what was mentioned by the panel members. Also a key solution, and I think something that Minister pointed out this morning is very key, and it is something that has a region, Pacific region. But for PNG as a country, I think already transportation and infrastructure for and at a level that it completes the value chain for fresh produce development and marketing. And as I mentioned that the land is 97% owned by the people, traditionally owned. So, to mobilize large-scale farming would be a very big challenge. And it is, but for the, to have a PPP arrangement, and we have, classic examples in the country of that kind of arrangement. And we have, one of the, is the strawberries that has been grown through the PPP arrangement, and it's exported to Singapore. But apart from that, for the local to be actively engaged, for the people to improve their income and empower them economically, we need that infrastructure and key infrastructure, market to have access to market. And I also mentioned yesterday about IFAD's support to that specific area of a project that is having the market for village farmers. But that is rural, as in local, partnering with very smallholder farmers. But how do we bring those, like congregate those production and bring them out and into the cities and to where the population congregates and still have the quality maintained? That is something that needs to be looked at, the whole of that fresh produce value chain. And also, in terms of nutrition, as I mentioned, this is probably something to look at the whole of the region approach. For PNG, we have really not prospered in terms of addressing our stunting and wasting. We have kind of gone backwards instead of improving, and it is something that really needs that multi-sectoral, multi-partners, all of that approach to help us to really have that. We really, as a country, don't want from 30% to now 38 or 37%. It's like gone back. And we don't want the stunting to be generational. We'd at least want it to be improved so that, it's, when we say, and somebody mentioned in the first day of the forum about school feeding, nutritional approach, really to address nutrition would be the 1,000 days. And that 1,000 days starts the moment that the mother conceives the child. That is considered as day one, to the child being between 2 to 3 years old, and the number of days starting day one as the mother conceives, to counting that number of days to the 1,000 days from the child being at 2 to 3 years old. And so it really, addressing nutrition would start at 5 years and below and not 5 years and above. So that is something that really needs to be critically looked at if we want to break that stunting and wasting cycle and not getting into generational where, when it says stunting, the evidence is their small size. But really when they mention stunting in nutrition, it's all about the stunted growth of the cognitive, the brain network. That's when it means stunting. So we need to have that addressed, would be really to look at the below 5 years old, even all the way to the mother, the pregnant mother. So that if we can do something about that, then I think, we haven't progressed. And I would think that my other brothers and sisters in the Pacific would probably have the same problems. So that would be something to look at regional-wise. But just, I would like to stress also on the minister's point of fisheries. Because really when you look at the Pacific, Papua New Guinea would be the largest land area. The others, the sea level rising, and it is a major problem. And where would they go to? But for that, like in the meantime, to empower them economically, and this would be an appeal. And I would like to stress again what the minister mentioned about, how do you identify a local private sector to partner, to really help and guide them to come to that place where they're able to, be able to successfully run a multi-million sort of entity, or in terms of, tuna factory. So yes, he rightly said that the tuna factories that we have in maybe 3 or 4 that we have in Papua New Guinea is all Philippines based. We don't have a nationally owned, and it would be good to have, a national owned tuna factory where, when you say that, downstream processing, and if you have to support, really you have to support the nationals to do their own downstream processing, not in terms of fisheries alone, but the other downstream processing as well. Nationals are owning the downstream processing factories. And in that way, then you will increase the economy, the GDP of the country, and then you would not continue to support us, but you are able to help us to be able to self-sustain ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Regina. So I hear that the 3 key areas you highlighted here. The first one is key infrastructure for access to market, including access for the smallholders to get to the market. The second one is a dedicated program for nutrition to address the issue of malnutrition and stunting. And the third one is on fisheries, and also linked to the point the minister mentioned earlier, the fishing port is also important here, as well as the, promoting the local private. Thank you. So I will now turn to Ms. Alice. Ms. Alice, please.
Thank you. I think in terms of opportunities, there's lots, and I think probably I'll quickly highlight maybe 4 or 5. One is, I think, regional policy setting, and the Pacific region has lots of policies or regional strategies already in place. Obviously, the overarching one is the 2050 strategy. From SPC's perspective, we've got our strategic plan. We've got for fisheries, the new song for fisheries, coastal fisheries. The agriculture and forestry strategy is currently in development, so we should have one soon. And so I think that sets the scene as entry points for donors or partners like ADB, first and foremost. So, it's not about creating a new set of, where can we come in to support the work that the Pacific does. That's pretty clear cut, I think. So I think those are good entry points. Secondly is, I think there's lots of opportunities for donor coordination as well, or partnership coordination. The regional architecture, of which SPC is part of, there's the Forum Secretariat, which the Minister had mentioned, and I think ADB is also, has attended the Forum Economic Ministers and so on. So I think joining those dots of where we all participate, we share membership. I mean, the same members that are in this room are also members of ADB. So I think just that ability to maybe reinforce those connections and build or enhance those relationships is really crucial when we're looking at complex areas like food systems. For SPC, we're really fortunate that the SPC members and under their leadership came up with such an amazing strategic plan using a futures foresight methodology, which we've never done before. So I think that's really key for us, and having that leadership from the membership and reinforcing food systems as a priority area. If you look at our strategic plan, we have 7 key focus areas, and one is purely dedicated to food systems, and I think that clearly shows that members value and see the importance of this really crucial issue that's confronting the region. So I think that's really important for us. Internally, we've created what we call flagships. So we have 4 flagships in SPC. One is food systems, which I look after. There's one on gender, there's one on oceans, and there's one on climate change. And all these 4 are so interlinked and interconnected. So we support the work that all our divisions do. So we've got technical expertise in fisheries, agriculture, forestry, statistics. We've had data and measurement from day one. So we've got a really strong statistics division. We've got a human rights division, education, health. So the flagships are really there to reinforce the work that they do in the countries, but it's also about bringing innovation. We'd like to see ourselves, the flagships, as raising the heat in the room, pushing the boundaries a little bit, and just bringing some innovation to the whole conversation. But also finding more intentional ways of working with other partners, particularly civil society and private sector. SPC is an intergovernmental organization, so we work with governments and line ministries. They're our focal points, if you will. And we do work with civil society and private sector and academia, but almost very ad hocly in a way. So I think that using the flagships and a new strategic plan is a really great way for us to have a more intentional way of working with these groups. And we know food systems particularly affects every single person. If there's one issue that confronts every single person in this room and in our region, it's food systems, because everyone has to eat or drink. So I think that's really crucial for us. One of the other issues I wanted to present was around the regional research agenda. So that's part of the work that SPC is doing. And I think that's an important one for the Pacific, particularly, and it's not just focused on agriculture and forestry. Again, it's the entry points for broader food systems conversation when it comes to regional research. So that's still a work in progress from SPC side, but we're really excited about that. And again, think that's an important one for partners, including the Asian Development Bank. The second last one I wanted to mention was regional public goods. So for SPC, we are a regional organization. We bring together collective capacities and capabilities. So we have what is CPACT, for example, which is our seed and gene bank that's based in Fiji, and acknowledge the support of the New Zealand government in recent years supporting that. We've got the Seeds for Life program. We've got POVAPS, which is the Veterinary Animal Production Services. We've got the Pacific Data Hub, and we're just building now our food systems database with the support of the University of Wollongong. So lots of stuff happening in terms of regional public goods to support our member countries. So again, that's an area where I think a lot of the partners like ADB can find support or access to partnerships with SPC. And last, I think, is just support and echo the message that Honourable Minister Victor talked about, the transformative investments. He mentioned the Unlocking Blue Pacific Prosperity, and there are 3 focus areas, of which the second one is on coastal food system. So really underpins the work we want to see going forward. Of course, 100 million investment from the Bezos Earth Fund, and looking to now leverage and mobilize additional funding to support that work going forward. And that's also, I think, really crucial for us to consider, because it's really looking at, I mean, it's not about business as usual, if you will, I think, and that's come through from day one. And I think I liked I think it was Joe who put up that slide, the 5 areas of investments, and nutrition being the least, the area which had the least amount of money going into. So I think transformative investment's really crucial, that it's not about business as usual. It's not even about iterative shifts. I think it's really about being transformative and even radical in some instances. Thank you for raising the PPPs and private-public partnerships. From SPC, because food systems we see is more people-centered, we'd like to also maybe shift the dial a bit and focus on people first, private-public partnerships. But also how do we then just work together to really find entry points for food systems. I think, I've been in this role for 2 years, and it hasn't been easy to sort of mobilize resourcing for food systems. It's a key focus area, everyone talks about it, likewise with climate change, but I think it's still very sectoral in terms of access to funding and resourcing. And that's great, that's potentially the entry points into addressing broader food systems, but I think there's got to be a bit more consideration more generally around where is it, or have that conversation about if we're talking food systems and investments, what does that actually look like?
Thank you very much, Ms. Alice. It's great that as actually we have this regional architecture in place with SPC there, and all those things you have suggested actually will be very, very useful in guiding our operations in the Pacific. In particular, for example, finding out the right entry point for food system. That's exactly also the work from ADB side we're doing right now. And also importance of the transformative investment, including cost of food system. By the way, you mentioned about the 4 flagships, and actually, for example, food system, gender, climate change, and the ocean. These are all very, very important for ADB operations. And actually, from our sector operations, actually, for example, we mainstream gender into our all operations. And for everything we're doing, basically, we need to make sure it's contributing to climate adaptation or mitigation. And definitely for Pacific Ocean health is a must. Thank you so much. Now, I'll come to Ms. Fiona, please.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I'll echo points already made in terms of very much being driven by partner priorities, and also by collaboration, definitely at that sort of that higher level in terms of those high-level donor coordination meetings, absolutely essential. But also I think at the investment level, and not just in the design of investments, but in their ongoing implementation. And I think we can build a better model of collaboration where we're playing to our respective strengths. So I guess I can sort of see a vision where we match, some local sort of rural infrastructure investment, through perhaps a development bank, with, within the same geographical area, with support to family farms to improve, the inputs and growing practices, to address nutrition through nutrition-sensitive agricultural approaches, women's economic empowerment approaches, and that would be delivered by, groups that have the strength in those areas, such as church-based organisations or NGOs or government extension services where they exist. Then you also bring in folks that can provide access to credit and financial literacy training. Again, let's look for who's got the strengths in that, and that may well be a private sector player that can bring that on board. In terms of the inputs and the practices, I mean, they have to be climate resilient, and that is a complex space and a very much an evolving space, and that needs, some good scientific thinking, some good Pacific science, which brings us to some of the shared public goods that we have in the Pacific through our Centre for Pacific Crops and Trees, through climate characterisation work that they do. But again, we've got to build that science ecosystem, and to do that, we need partners such as our research centres, our Crown Research Institutes in New Zealand, our Australian Centre of International Agricultural Research, CSIRO and others. But again, I can see if all those partners were coalescing around a particular, perhaps a geography, perhaps particular crops, etc., then we could get more out of this than if we're doing things alone. So, yes, yeah, thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fernanda. It's very, very important, as you highlighted, the collaboration at the project design stage, but also very importantly, at the project implementation stage, we need to make sure what we have designed, what we have proposed, actually will achieve tangible results at the field level to the beneficiaries. And another important part on collaboration is also the policy. Also, we need to also coordinate the working together in helping the government on improving the policy environment, including looking from the regional perspective. Thank you so much. Now I come to Ms. Suzy, please.
Thank you. So, as the fourth speaker on the panel, I think we start to see some common themes emerging, and so I think, the rest of us have less to say, but I will also reiterate around collaboration, but not collaboration to the point that it results in inertia. We actually want to see action as well. And then also just building partnerships. But I want to start in a slightly different place, and that is that Aotearoa, New Zealand, is part of the Pacific. It is our home. And if we think about Tamaki Makaurau, Auckland, there are 300,000 Pacifica who live in Tamaki Makaurau. And so that really gives us a good place to start in terms of the understanding of shared values, the understanding of ways of working together, and really provides a strong basis for strong partnerships. So the Pacific is a key focus of New Zealand's international development cooperation programs, supporting both bilateral and regional initiatives. And as one of 7 Crown Research Institutes, Plant and Food Research's mandate is to create the world's most sustainable food systems, so really well aligned with the topic of discussion here today. In terms of our International Development Unit, which is where I come from, we have an increased focus on the Pacific. And what we're really keen to see is genuine partnerships and collaborations. And we recognise this takes time. So for some Pacific Island countries, we have worked there for 40 or 50 years. But in others, we are really just starting. And so that necessitates a different approach. So we are looking to build on and strengthen our existing partnerships, but also to build new ones. And to get there faster, we're looking to collaborate with a wide range of organisations. So some of those are like our sister CRI, Manaki Whenua Land Care Research, who also does a lot of work in the Pacific. And others are quite different from us, such as Pacific and New Zealand NGOs, because these types of partnerships really bring together organisations that have different strengths. So in the case of NGOs, their strength around community consultation, and then also looking to take initiatives to scale. Whereas we as a research organisation could kind of bring that innovation side, and also so the development and then the testing of those innovations. And also we have a strong focus on partnering with government, research and extension organisations, so ensuring that the work that we are doing is aligned with government priorities and building research capacity and capability, and also leading to genuine scientist-to-scientist collaboration, which is what really keeps things going. One of the challenges I think we face, and I know we're supposed to be talking about opportunities, but is in terms of governance structures, right? Because we want governance structures that oversee programs well, but we don't want these to be a burden on our Pacific partners. And so we're increasingly looking to take look at different models that enable Pacific partners to determine the best fit for these. As ADB looks to do more in the Pacific, there's no shortage of opportunities to invest and make a difference. However, as some of the other panelists have already alluded to, there is a need to ensure that there is strong collaboration, but that strong collaboration doesn't lead to inertia. So there needs to be action along with that collaboration. From an innovation perspective, I think there's also an opportunity to take innovations, technologies, or practice changes Pacific-wide. So it may be that something that is developed or tested in one part of the Pacific is then also of value to other parts. And I think we need to get cleverer about how we kind of share the developments and innovations that happen in one part of the Pacific and share more widely. And so I think there's a role to bring people more together to be able to share and showcase those things. So I think I will leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. You also highlight the importance of collaboration in action, and also, for example, from plant and food research, as well as other research institutes in the conference room here today. Actually, it's very important for us to collaborate together on innovation, on technologies, as well as on demonstration of those technologies and the innovations in the country, in the field, with our farmers or with our fishermen. And also this will also link up the point that Alice mentioned about the regional research agenda as well. So great opportunity to work together. Thank you so much. Now, let me come to Liang Zhi, please.
Okay, I just want to clarify what I said about satellite. I think I'm not proposing, just all Pacific Island set up kind of space program. I'm thinking the good example is the European Space Agency. Maybe the good old days, we always use the LASA satellite, science, I don't know, 2000 something, European Space Agency have the Sentinel satellite. They have, after all, the Africans have a voice. So the African satellite coverage, at least on the agriculture, is much, much better. I'm thinking about, if you guys really want to go that one, you rely on the Japanese, Indians, Chinese satellite. They can, you have to negotiate. It's not, you have the voice heard, and then, it's not like you just take satellite and then you do it. That is one thing I think ADB can play a role. I think I always, Alisa's point, I mean, regionalization, Another point I really want, I think is point, regional agriculture R&D. Again, I'm a researcher. We think technology is always the future, right? Agriculture R&D investment, everybody knows agriculture R&D investment is long, it's very expensive, it's a long time. It doesn't make sense for each country, Pacific country, to do their own research because they have a lot of similarities. I mean, I know small is beautiful, but beautiful doesn't make you rich, right, necessarily. So in that sense, collaboration, this is one of the regional goods, where, this regionalization, region public can help. I myself do a lot of research in Africa. I'm trying to join my colleague Emily to doing a lot of Asian countries because I came from China. It's not from, well, in Africa, maybe some of you, maybe a lot of you, I know, even Fiona, I actually did some, ICR did some work in SADC. SADC is Southern Africa Development Community. It's like a regional organization. It's like what SPC, like in the East Africa, there's Asarica, maybe, it's an acronym. In Western Africa is CORAF, is a French kind of, I mean, this regional organization is one of the major kind of mandate. Actually, it's all donor driven. It's kind of do the local breeding. Remember, all the international, even I know the New Zealand and then the Australia have very good agriculture program. And then they may, but their breeding, all the things, maybe it's not necessarily feasible for your own country. So you have to have a local capacity to get a local breeding. And this local kind of adaptation, collaboration is very expensive and very long term. It doesn't make, and then the whole spillover, the free riding issue, right? It doesn't make sense. Each country, taro, I know it's very important. Some kind of sweet potato is simple, but all this kind of localized technology, it doesn't make sense for you. Of course, you cannot afford it either because it takes so long. That regional public goods, investment in the R&D investment, I think is another kind of opportunity. That is kind of connective action from all, and then I know IDB can obviously play a role, in that part. Thank you.
Thank you, Liang Zhi, for highlighting the importance of R&D for the agricultural sector. Thank you so much. Now let me come to Mr. Joseph from FAO. Mr. Joseph, please.
Thank you. I think the colleagues already offered brilliant insights. So I'm not going to really delay it. I just wanted to say something. I don't know if you can see, I have something in my hand here, and it's a comb. This is different from a key. So if a door is closed today and you went to use this comb instead of using it to comb your hair, and you want to open the door this morning, you will fail. Tomorrow morning you come, you bring the same comb, you will fail. Day after tomorrow, you will fail. This is what in the British man's language, they call insanity. I'm quite sure that in Japanese and in the Pacific language, they have the equivalent word for insanity. I'm making this point because I think we have heard that the SDGs are stalled. They are not going anywhere. So it looks like we need to keep investing. And this is not just about the ADB, but even the UN agencies and all of the big donors. We have to think about doing something a little bit different and not the same business as usual that we have been doing. So some of the things could be, we have to think about what catalytic means. You know, it could be just doing something basic, but that will allow us to have a very good result. So I'm thinking on this point that the ADB might want to, you know, in terms of investing, and this is not only the ADB, but all of us working in the region. I mean, how many times have we sensitized the people that NCDs is a killer? People know this story. But there are some critical things, and we have been doing all the posters, radio announcements, teaching the women, you know, producing food. Still, it's a problem. So we can't keep coming doing the same thing over and over. I think what we need to do is think thoroughly and think of catalytic actions and not the same old things that we have been doing. I know it sounds maybe weird for somebody working for the UN to say that, but you know, this is what we have done for many years, and the results are still the same. This says something about the ODA architecture. I think there should be some kind of rethinking of how we invest in development to try to improve the situation. Now, I don't know what you need to do. I don't know the key because I'm part of the other of us that keep using the same comb, trying to open the door when we are not succeeding. But I'm thinking here that I think we should think a little bit more to address the issues that are more critical that can make us to have the results that the people need. The people know, and I think if we ourselves, if we have we have some kind of critical reflexivity, you know, to think about what we are doing. I think we'll have different results, and I think this is something that the ADB should think about. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Joseph, for your suggestions, and in particular, your point on revisiting the ODA structure or architecture. And also, we should not do things business as usual. Actually, it reminded me a point, Minister Victor, you mentioned the other day. In terms of ODA support, one is driven by government vision or driven by the financing. My answer is that it should be driven by the government strategy, by the government's vision. And that's where and how we should work together and collaborate together to support the achievement of the government's vision and objective. So Thank you so much, Mr. Joseph. And also, actually, we also appreciate very much the work FAO has been doing in Pacific region. For example, FAO has also this hand-in-hand initiative and supported developing specific agriculture value chain proposal for selected Pacific countries. So this is also a very good work that the different partners also can look into and work together on. Thank you so much. Sorry, we have already run over time, so we will not have opportunity for Q&A, but let's have a big applause to our panelists. Thank you very, very much for your excellent contribution. And to that, and also may I invite Qin Feng, Senior Sector Director for the Agriculture, Food, and Natural Rural Development Sector Office, to give us the closing remarks. Thank you, Qin Feng.
Thank you so much. I know we already run out of time, but I hope I can take 2 or 3 minutes, quickly share my insight, and at the same time is also close this session. Again, Asia Pacific facing the triple crisis: degradation of ecosystem, impact of the climate change, and also the increased risk of the food insecurity. Pacific is a hotspot. Today, we really heard challenging issues, a briefing by our Mr. Steve. Happy you stay until the end, so we can have the opportunity to also respond to your requests. And also our colleague from PNG and organizations like the Pacific Community and the IFL, and also researchers from the New Zealand and also IPRI. So it's very clear from one of the presentations we can hear, food security is now a major challenge among the one of the Pacific countries. Just 2 key challenges I want to highlight here. One is this nexus of between the climate change and also the food security. Again, the Pacific Island, they are facing the increases in sea level, and also, more importantly, the intensity, frequency of the tropical storms, heavy rains. One of them now affected the food productions. Of course, also limit access to the local grow and also harvest the food as well. This is now become very urgent. We need to find a way to address. The second thing I want to highlight is the Pacific small, isolated, and also short of lack of the infrastructure. So very much depend on the important food. Right now, this situation also increased the rate of we call it double challenges: malnutrition and at the same time the obesity, this non-communicable disease. This is one of the key hidden costs we mentioned yesterday. So come to solutions. We heard so many solutions already. I want to quickly share a number of things from the IDB perspective. 3 things I want to highlight. Again, in the FI forum in Stanford, many of the colleagues attended. Blue food was clearly highlighted. Blue food is a key entry point to transform the food system. And at the same time, also they support the blue economy, particularly in Pacific. Second, IDB launched the Ocean Health Program, which covered 2019 to 2024. Really, we try to update that one. Blue food, blue economy, also an integral part of the Ocean Health program as well. Same time, DG Leah is also in this room. With her leadership, we also localized the Pacific. Many of the colleagues, particularly the IPRI, mentioned about Pacific, so many countries, very diverse, but sometimes they also share many challenges. So in that way, with the leadership of the LEA DG Pacific, we already launched the Pacific approach, which cover 2021 to 2025, and then we're going to update that one as well. So that message is very clear. We need to have the multi-year, multi-sector, sustaining cross-sector, and all their framework approach cover what the countries. So come to my conclusions, also respond to Steve, Victor, your request for partnership. We know that you already mobilized $100 million based also Earth Foundation to support the food system transformation. That's good. 100 million is not so small, but sometimes definitely compared to needs is very small. So we need to work together. I want to share is ADB we already have established the Asia Pacific Natural Capital Lab and the Natural Capital Fund as well. Bezos Foundation also reached out to us. So in that way, we think, and of course with their leadership, we will also build up this Pacific Blue Hub. I think we can work together with the support from the FAO, New Zealand, Australia, many of the partners, build up this sort of the coherent, coordinated actions. Yesterday I mentioned about how to transform the food system. We're talking about 5 components. We need to have the emergency response system. This is already utilized in the pandemic. Number 2, we need to adopt the value chain approach, address food system issues. This is not only just about supply chain issues, also mitigate the climate change. Number 3 is we need to adopt shift the support to the nature-based infrastructure, particularly associated with the security resilience. Natural capital approach, very essential. Number 4 is we call it production-focused infrastructure, particularly along the highway, rural connectivity, digitalizations, remote sensing, satellite, all the technologies, and also storage, also critical, cold chain, also very essential. Finally, nutrition. We discussed about that. One of the international financial institutions, not yet that good to really scale up investment, but already yesterday you heard from the US Treasury, we built up this sort of IFI forum, and we're going to create a specific working group among the World IFI on the nutrition security. In that way, we will have scale up nutrition investment. I also say to the Treasury and many of the FIs, Pacific is our focus for nutrition security. So with that, I hope we can work together, build up the more holistic, programmatic approach addresses one of the challenges in the short term, but more importantly, build up the solutions for the long-term resilience. Thanks again for the one of the panel member, particularly thanks to Steve, Victor, Minister, for your support. We need to work together achieve this prosperity and the long-term sustainability for the Pacific. Thank you so much.